Welcome back to another episode of the After You Game podcast. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me, as always, is Moonpeer. That's the best overview of 2020 I could have ever given. Also joining us is the Nip.
Sounds a lot like Simish.
Yeah.
Um,
Perfect. Yes, I agree. Yeah. All right. So this is our top 10 episode. It's the last two episodes here of the year. We're currently on vacation, as you're hearing this. So this week
it is needed.
Yes, it is. It's so good. This episode will be going on our top 10. Next episode, we'll be going over the 2021 predictions, where we recap 2020, look at 2021, crown the most correctest. All that stuff will be coming next week. But this week, we sort of look back at 2020. This is the point where I gesture at the Nightmare Hellscape, and we move very quickly on.
I believe the meme is points everywhere.
Yeah, we'll move quickly on from summarizing 2020. So very quickly, as quickly as possible, let's sort of talk about the order of things we're going to do here, the general rules as they sort of are, and then we'll start getting into our lists. So most importantly, we haven't seen each other's lists. These are surprises to everybody. There's 3 sealed envelopes, which is just a document on our computer that we're all looking at.
My Excel sheet is certified and signed. Thank you.
Perfect. Notarized too? Fancy.
My OneNote file is just a bunch of scribbles.
My Evernote is looking pretty organized this year for the first time. Unlike the regular episode where we kind of have a conversation as we're going on, this one, especially for the top 10, we let each person have their moment. They get to talk about why they liked this game, why it was in their top 10. As it's been on the show for like the last 13 years, there's no rules for what people have in their top 10 lists. These are the individuals' lists. If you want to put a re-release of a re-release of a remaster on your list because you love it in 2020, whatever, man. No big deal. You want to say
those just missed out on my list.
Right. You want to say like, no, only original games are on my list, no remasters, no nothing. That's cool too. Whatever. No big deal. We try not to spoil stuff in our list. If we do, we'll give you a heads up so you can kind of scooch ahead a little bit if you haven't gotten there yet. This list includes games that came out from December 2019 to December 2020. So since we record this kind of usually early on in December, there's a little bit of wiggle room of, some of December to some of December. Let's talk about the sections here. We're going to start off with Best Old Game. This is a game that didn't come out this year that we played and we loved. Its sort of sister category here is 2020's Alpha Protocol. This is usually a 2020 game, but sometimes can be an old game, but it's definitely a B game we love. It is the Alpha Protocol. We played this game this year where it's maybe not the best, but boy, we really loved something about it. We're going to go through our honorable mentions. Those are the ones that just didn't make the top 10. We're going to talk about your community games of the year, the top 3 choices there. And then we're going to get into our top 10. And usually we go real quickly through games I missed at the very end. We're going to go around the horn, unlike started the rule a couple of years ago. Start with Moon, then Nymph, then myself, and we sort of go around, so it's not just, here's my 10 to 1. All right, let's go start with Best Old Game. This is the game that didn't come out this year. Doesn't matter how long ago it was, but you played it this year and you loved it. Let's start with you, Mr. Moon.
Okay, so this one is mainly, honestly, the one good thing about Boston being obsessed with producing content is, unfortunately, I'm a part of pretty much all of those shows except for picking up the pixels.
Right.
Which means that I get to play all of the roguelikes that ever existed. And it also means that I get to do Game Club. Which means that my best old game, I have 4 on this list. I am going to choose one and talk about that one, but I have 4 that I need to mention here.
Okay.
So, Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, absolutely.
Everspace.
Yep.
And Super Metroid. 3 games I never played until this year. 3 games that are old games and could be on your old game of the year list any year.
Yeah, the I think as this episode comes out, the ranking episode for Game Club will be out, where we played, tiny unpopular games like Stardew Valley this year as well. Where it's like it's just
Yep.
just a motley crew of incredible games this year.
But my best old game, it has to go to Oberdin.
Mm.
Like the uniqueness of that game, like the difference in gameplay style, the way it looks, the way it feels, the fact that you can play it in 2-minute chunks if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Oberdin is an incredible game, and apparently it plays well on all platforms, I believe, because I think we all played on different platforms on the show.
Yeah.
And just that game, everybody was hyped about it when it came out, and I did not play it at that time, which was last year, by the way, folks.
Right.
The game came out like last year. And understandably so. Like, that game is a masterpiece in making video games and presenting them and not making you feel stupid on the way. Like, it's one of the best, like, lateral thinking / puzzle games I've ever played in my life. Like, it's so good.
Nimp, on over to you.
My best old game is Bloodborne.
Oh, there we go.
So
I'm sorry, Mister. I don't like Souls likes.
I know. I don't know what it is about that game, because I've played all the Dark Souls games. I've played Demon Souls. I've beaten Bloodborne this year, and there's bits of them that catch me, and the rest of it, I'm just kind of like, nah, screw these games. I'm not interested. And then I start playing one again, and then I'm just into it again. So Bloodborne, I like that it was different from the other Souls games, where generally when you first start out on a Souls game, you're usually playing with a shield and sword. Bloodborne, you don't have a shield at all. There is a shield that you can get. It is considered a joke shield and is worthless. So the only way to play this game is to either parry or dodge. And I got really good with the dodge once I got my holy sword of Ludwig. I think it's Ludwig's holy sword.
Right.
The gunship of Bloodborne. But yeah, I don't know, man. I can't tell you why this one just all of a sudden I was just like, oh, I'm into this now. I think it also helped that I found that wanted poster of all the bosses online and just drew those X's, and I still get a little surge of pride when I pop that file up and it draws all those little red X's in there for me. So I had fun with it. And it was a pain. And like I said on the original show a couple weeks ago, I hate that it made me work for it, but I really enjoyed playing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my best old.
Mine is The Return of the Oberdin. I literally wrote here, it can't be anything else. It is, I think it's one of the best games of all time. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's such an incredible and flawlessly done puzzle game. And like Moon said here a couple minutes ago, it manages to avoid the trap that a lot of puzzle games make players feel, where it's like, oh, the game made me feel dumb until I felt smart, and then I got to the next puzzle that made me feel dumb. There's no time limit, there's no pressure, it's just an insurance investigator on an empty ship. And, like, nothing is going to jump out at you and get you. Like, nothing bad is going to happen.
Just that description by itself makes it sound like the most boring thing ever.
And it's, like, one of my favorite games of all time. Because, like... And the funny thing, too, is there's almost no animation in the game. Like, it sounds like this game where it's like, yeah, but what do you actually do? Because, like, all of this sounds real bad. But, like, just you having this notebook where you're putting all the pieces together slowly over the game and finding this one thing in the game where it's like, oh my god, I didn't realize all 3 of these people are wearing the same vest, so they must have the same job. Okay, so now I can start putting, and like all the pieces start coming together, and like those moments that kept happening through the game kept, like, every time it felt so good, on top of really cool visuals, incredible voice acting and sound design, like a really genuinely satisfying ending. Like Obra Dinn is genuinely so good, and I'm really pissed I didn't play it last year because that probably would have been my game of the year.
It's usually where these episodes go, though, really, isn't it?
Yeah, where it's like, oh yeah, cool, I could have played that last year, but whoops. All right, so let's talk about 2020's Alpha Protocol. This is probably an older or newer game we played this year that maybe isn't great, but boy, do we have a soft spot for it. A real diamond in the rough. Moon, what was yours for this year?
Again, multiple nominations here. I got two. Number one, the Alpha Protocol Award for stealing my partner goes to DayZ, where when the lockdown first happened way back when in March, and I literally didn't see or speak to her for like 4 weeks, it felt like, because DayZ took her away from me. That is a broken boogie mess.
Yeah.
However, my actual nomination goes to Space Engineers.
Right.
I'm not going to go too much into it because, spoiler alert, you'll see this on a different list. But the Alpha Protocol features of this game are really bad on a controller. It's got way too many menus. It doesn't look great. It doesn't play great. You consistently fly yourself into a wall and kill yourself by accident. It's really optimized for keyboards and mice. But still, I love it.
Yeah.
So much. It had to win my award this year.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that more later. The good things later.
All right, Nymph, what's yours?
All right. Mine is actually from last year, and that is Greedfall.
Oh, right.
It's not buggy so much as just not. It's a solid B tier game.
Yeah.
You still have the issues of your character movement, where the momentum, I don't know why people insist on having momentum in your game for your characters, because it never seems to work right.
Yeah.
Some of the controls do feel old. Like this should have been last gen's controls, not this gen's. And the graphics are kind of, I mean, they work. They're there. I haven't had anything glitch out or anything like that, but it's still a fun game to play. Probably, you guys will hear in an earlier episode, I started picking it up again because I haven't had a whole lot of time with my PS4 recently. So,
right.
But yeah, I enjoy it, but it is probably never going to be on anyone's top 5, maybe 10, probably 20.
Right. Mine for Alpha Protocol this year is Vambrace Cold Soul. This is a game, I think it came out this year. We played it on We Roguelike It this year because it looked like a roguelike and is definitely not.
Nope.
It also...
One might say it reminds us of a different game which Boston was really in love with.
Yeah, it visually looks a lot like Darkest Dungeon, and it also is kind of halfway there. It's a really weird game that it's one of those games that I really enjoyed and I really clicked with, and I'm not sure I could explain why, and probably can't recommend it to very many people, just because it's this kind of complicated but at the same time a little thin of an experience. An incredible art style, pretty okay writing, but there's just something about it where it's so focused on just dungeon crawling, getting through the dungeon, beating the boss by the skin of your teeth, and repeating it in the next dungeon. That really clicked with me for some reason. And Vambrace Cold Soul is kind of a cool thing that is not super great, but I loved it all the same, which seems like it's kind of perfect for that category. All right, next category here is honorable mentions. We'll kind of motor right through these. Moon, why don't you hit us with your whole list here, because we'll probably won't talk about each individual one that long.
Yeah. Remakes and things like that I mentioned. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. It's exactly how I remember those games being, which is exactly how remakes and remasters should be.
Right.
Like, to quintessentially bring me back to being 15 again, sitting in my bedroom with my PlayStation with the spring in it because I wanted to play Japanese games and everything else. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, fantastic, doesn't make the cut. Tetris Effect, really fantastic, doesn't make the cut because I haven't really played too much of it.
Right.
Shout out to Rob for this reminder to go on the honorable mentions list, but Fast and the Furious Crossroads has to be on the honorable mentions list as one of the worst games ever.
A video game that came out in 2020.
Yes, factually correct.
It is shockingly bad.
Yes, it literally, the worst thing is, it has potential when the last mission in the game is the only Fast and Furious moment in it, and you're like,
and
why
it's really
not
good.
this the whole game?
It's really good too. Yeah.
And my final honorable mention is Doom Eternal. It's so good. It's so good, but it's not Doom 2016, and it tries to add a little bit too much to the mix. And then instead of getting a cake, you just get some splur that's that you can't really do much with.
Yeah.
But yes, that is my honorable mentions this year. Mr. Nimp, please take me away.
All right, mine's a fairly short list. Phantasy Star Online 2. That recently came out on the Xbox.
Right.
Really enjoyed playing it, but it just never really stuck with me. And I honestly haven't heard anyone really talk about it since it came out for the Xbox over here. So that's a bummer.
Yeah.
And the last one that I have for an honorable mention is Worms Rumble.
Mm.
Only because my son and I have been playing a fair amount of it. We're really enjoying it, but I don't think it's good enough to be on my list. But just barely. So...
Mine is Animal Crossing New Horizons. It barely missed the list here. I enjoyed it. It's my first Animal Crossing game. I really loved it for like March, April, May, and then kind of didn't play it that much after that, which is fine. I don't need to play it every day for an entire year. But it's a really great experience, and I'm glad that Nintendo's been sticking with it. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I feel like I cut a little bit of my heart out saying that, but like there just wasn't enough time in the year for me to get far enough in it to put it anywhere on my list. It's hovering somewhere in my list, and I didn't get far enough to put it anywhere in there. What's up?
Understandable.
Yeah. Glass Masquerade 2. This is that puzzle game that Late Elf in the community and I totally love. Really great. I don't like the art content as much as the first one, but there's even more puzzles this time, and the hard mode puzzles are even harder because you can rotate the pieces this time. So it's very good. Saga Scarlet Grace Ambitions. This came out super late 2019. Really loved this, even though, if anyone remembers, I got to a point where I accidentally boned myself and couldn't finish the game, like at the very, very, very ending, which it happens with Saga games. But I really liked that, and it couldn't hang with the rest of the ones on my list. Soda Dungeon 2. I played this a lot this year, way better than the first one, like a way bigger game, way easier to play. I still think it's the king of incremental games. I think it's one of the best mobile games you can play, and it does what the first one did and fixes all of the problems, which is really crazy. And my last one, Solitaire Conspiracy. It's nice to see someone put out a solitaire game that has super high production values, tries to tell this interesting story about, competing hacking organizations, and has a ton of FMV, and the solitaire game underneath it is really interesting and does some cool stuff with, hey, these cards have powers, which is typically not a thing we get other than it's like, well, here's the cards and there's a theme this time. So
normally that's a roguelike.
Yeah, and like it's also nice because it was like a 4-hour experience. It was like $10. It's 4 hours, really high production values. The developers have been patching it to include a ton of content after the fact. So they're really sticking with it, and they're really adding a ton of stuff to it. All right, before we get to our top 10, let's get to the TVGP Community Game of the Year, voted on by all of you out there in listener land. Number 3 is a tie between Fuser and Destiny 2 Beyond Light, which not expecting either one of those on the list.
Glad to see the No Quarters crew making their opinions heard
Right.
during this voting season.
Right. Number 2 is Final Fantasy VII Remake. And number 1, by a landslide, is Hades. So thank you, community, for both voting here in your Game of the Year thing and sending your predictions for the next episode. All right.
Also, just being a part of the community.
Yeah, the best community on the internet. Thank you.
It warms the cockles of my cold, dead heart.
That's right. All right, let's move on to the main event here, the top 10. 2020 is top 10. Start with you, Mr. Moon, at your number 10.
Okay, so this one was a hard one for me because I honestly don't know where to put this on my list. The reason I don't know where to put this on that's a good start to number 10 is when I can't continue talking. I don't know where it should go because I haven't beaten it yet. It's on my list on potential and also what I have played. And it's also number 10 because of potential and what I have played.
Okay.
Which is to say, this is AC Valhalla.
Gotcha.
It's number 10 because this game is too large.
So big.
I'm not kidding when I say I am 87 hours in and still not beat the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's number 10. It makes my list, I should say. Oh, it's number 10 because it's too big and also the occasional open world jank. But whatever, that's open world jank. That's going to happen. The reason it's on my list is because, oh boy, did they go some places with this game. I will continue to refuse to spoil it because there is one of the locations that I know of. I know that both of you gentlemen have been to it. They confirmed it for me pre-show, and I literally got a meme from Boston throughout the week when he got
You got
there.
surprised Pikachu from me in a text.
Yes.
And also, it's still too new for us to say,
Yes.
like, here's the places you go. Spoiler.
Yes. Careful listening to the Beastcast, folks, because they 100% just drop that bomb right in the middle of an episode.
Oh, boy.
Yes. So much I love about this game, but I think my original theory from the main show proper is going to be correct. I think I'm going to like the overarching Assassin's Creed story the most from this, but I still think Cassandra is going to be my favorite and Origin is going to be the best overall. Is how I feel like this is going to. Because to be honest, the overarching story in Valhalla is 100% for Boston. It's 100% for me. And it's not for nobody else. You guys don't get to enjoy it. Not on the level that we do. Because they're dropping some hints all over the place on this.
Yeah.
And I have, unfortunately, Boston, unfortunately for you, I have heard that this may have very serious connections to Rogue, the one Assassin's Creed game I haven't played.
Me neither. Oh, no. I'll play 2 Assassin's Creed games this year, then.
So yeah, AC Valhalla, my number 10, Mr. Nimp.
My number 10 is Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. So my son and I have played a lot of this. I enjoy the fact that it's short, it's sweet, you're just running from one end to the other, and it's just Wipeout. I wish they had commentary, like, because some of that could be funny, but we've had a lot of fun with this game. There's only, I think, 2 of the maps or whatever runs you want to call it that I absolutely hate. And that's the chicken coop thing with the eggs.
Yep.
And that tower climbing thing.
Yep.
Those are the only 2 that I can think of that would make me want to quit the game. So, but other than that, I mean, we've had a lot of fun decorating our little jelly beans and just doing dumb stuff. And my son and I have gotten to the point where we get to the end and we try to bump each other into the finish line. And that's led to some weird, crazy stuff happening with physics at the end. So, yeah. it's a lot of fun, but it
Yeah.
can also be very, very aggravating. So
Yeah.
that's my 10.
My number 10 is this is weird. Bro, I'm gonna get some hate for this one. Number 10 is Genshin Impact, which feels
Wait, why? Hold on. Now that you've stated the name of the game, why would you get hate?
it feels super low for how high quality the game is, but 2020 has been a surprisingly backloaded year for games. Where at the beginning it's like, I played like 3 or 5 games throughout the first half of this year, and it's like, go, games, like get. So like, Genshin Impact is a really great game. It obviously takes a lot of inspiration from Breath of the Wild in nearly every facet, but it does that game so well, and it kind of minimizes or eliminates the problems with Breath of the Wild, like weapon durability, which is never fun.
Or not being able to climb when it's raining.
Right, like stuff like that, where it's like, this is, I love everything except for these things that are really bad.
Yeah.
And it makes an open world game that is a lot of fun and very rewarding to explore. There's stuff everywhere. It's like, oh, here's this one area. There's 400 chests in here, and each and every one of them is going to be fun to find. And it has a fun battle system. It's genuinely fun to fight, just like, here's a bunch of goblins, go fight them. It's like, hell yeah, let's go get them. And like all the elemental combinations and stuff, gliding and doing these dungeons, and it's free to play on top of it. Like Genshin Impact is really, really great, and it's one of those things where it's like, I feel badly that you're at number 10, but God, everything else on this list is really good too. I can just only fit 10 on here. So Genshin Impact is my number 10. Moon, what is your number 9?
It's going to be BPM for me.
Yes.
So that's BPM, bullets per minute, for those not following along with our rogue
Such a good title.
themed show. This is an incredible roguelike that takes Quake and turns it into a rhythm game.
Like a rhythm first-person shooter? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so unique and so stupid and so incredible all at the same time. Oh, and it's a roguelike, which I just happen to like that genre of games too.
Yeah.
And we discussed it in the show proper. Like, I have played that first stage about 1,000 times, and I'm still not fed up with the music. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, Boston may be the worst person on the planet at this game, but even he will agree that it's a quality game.
It's a great game that I can't beat the first boss. I'm so bad at it.
But yeah, BPM it's incredible. It looks like a small dev team, maybe like 3 to 5 people based on the descriptions. Like, literally in their challenges, it says more to come if we have the money. So maybe go buy BPM. Like,
it's good enough to have spawned a subgenre at this point.
Yes, there are more on the way. So I'm looking forward to that. But yes, my number 9, BPM. Monsieur Nimp.
My number 9 is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Like everyone else, no, I have not beaten this game. I've got, I think, like 40 hours into it, which is apparently nothing. And that's, even if I had beaten this game and the story was really great, I don't think it would have been much higher on my list, only because I think it's just got too much bloat in it.
Yep.
It's a beautiful looking game. It plays pretty well. The story so far is pretty catching, but there's just too much bloat. And I don't know. I think they would have done a lot better if they could have had the big land masses, but there didn't need to be so much stuff everywhere that didn't really amount to anything so far.
Right.
If that makes any sense. Like picking up like items and stuff that you're not going to use for anything because you already have this one thing that's built up to the max or whatever. So But other than that, though, it's on my list at number 9 because I have enjoyed playing apparently what little of it I've played.
10% at 40 hours.
Yeah.
My number 9 is also a surprise from We Rogue Like It, and one of my biggest surprises this year is Neon Abyss. Neon Abyss is a game, and I think we shared this on We Rogue Like It. We shared this opinion. It looks really bad from the onset. Like, it looks like it's this, like, cyberpunky, neon light, dripped kind of attitude thing. And it is absolutely not that. It's the Riddled Corpses EX problem, where it's like, this looks bad. Oh, the actual game looks really good. So Neon Abyss takes a lot of inspiration from kind of the roguelike heavy hitters. It's very influenced by Isaac and Gungeon and kind of the big tentpole releases, but it really manages to make it into something that's its own. And it has a lot of referential stuff, like it has an Assassin's Creed item in it, but none of it feels like the cake is a lie sort of thing, where it's just like, oh god, like 2020 and you're doing this. It's a 2D side-scrolling, like almost like platforming dual stick shooter roguelike, and all of that sounds like it wouldn't work well together. It's really good, and it controls really well. All of the items, all the unlockables are really great. It does a thing that I don't think we've really seen in a roguelike before, where it has a skill tree, and that's how you do your kind of global unlocks, and you kind of choose what you want. It does a smart thing where you unlock it in the skill tree, you get that item, and usually like an item it synergizes with the next run, because you want to use it right away, of course. It's a really, really solid game that I think we went into the We Rogue Like It playing, being like, all right, let's kind of see. And I think that first week we were playing, we were like, oh no, this is really good. This is a genuine surprise. Neon Abyss is really, really great, and I think it's one that I can wholeheartedly recommend. It's very good.
Yes, it is.
Moon, what's your number 8?
Okay, number 8. Speaking of games that, make you feel like how you remember the games being, Streets of Rage 4.
Yeah.
Yo, that game is... Like, how do you say to somebody you're going to remake Streets of Rage, or you're going to do a new Streets of Rage in the year 2020? And spoiler alert, it's one of the best side-scrolling beat-em-ups that ever made, and the music is amazing, and the art style is incredible, and it somehow maintains the memory of Streets of Rage of the past, which, spoiler alert, those were bad games.
Yeah.
And makes it so much better, adds so many more characters, and of course they put all the nostalgia in there because you can unlock all of the old characters as well. It's like so many modes, so many different ways to play. And oh, by the way, did I mention the music is rad too?
It's so good.
Like, it's a genuinely fantastic game, and if you would have said to me in January that Streets of Rage will be one of your top 10 games of the year, I would have laughed you out the door.
Yep.
But hey, it's genuinely good. Go play it. It's still on Game Pass, I think. Give it a shot.
Yep.
Yeah. Number 8, Streets of Rage 4. Mr. Nimp.
My number 8 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare / Warzone / whatever else they're calling this game. They made a lot of changes. I think the last one I played was Black Ops 2, maybe just Black Ops. So I hadn't played a Call of Duty in forever, just because it pretty much all felt the same. There wasn't anything new that they were doing, and it was kind of boring. And believe it or not, there still isn't that much different from the last time I had played one. But the way that they changed the multiplayer, instead of having certain perks on your character, now they changed it to, okay, if you put this attachment on your weapon, this fills in what the old perk was way back when. And you can customize your weapons and your loadouts way better than you could in the past. And the fact that they had the cross-play / cross... I think this one also had the cross stat stuff where your
Mm.
stuff would move from Xbox to PlayStation to PC. That all worked out really well. Where I had a lot of friends who were playing on Xbox or PC, we would all get together and we would play. And yes, PC players still had way better accuracy than console players did, but I felt like it wasn't as big of an issue as everyone was worried about.
Mm.
And then the hack stopped, and then I stopped playing. But anyway, I had a lot of fun with this, with a lot of my older friends who used to play. I used to play Call of Duty with. We would play Warzone all the time. It was one of the few battle passes that I did this year. And I also liked the fact that they did the battle pass in such a way that once you got to a certain point, you had enough of, I guess, like, I forget what they call it, like COD points or something like that, where you could buy the next battle pass instead of actually having to fork over money every time a new battle pass came out. So if you played enough, you basically, I think it was like $10 to start the battle pass. And if you played it enough, you had enough credits where you could just roll into the next one. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of swearing, a lot of late nights drinking. So, but the story,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah.
it's the original purpose for Call of Duty: late night drinking and swearing.
Yeah.
So that is my number 7
8, hopefully.
or 8, whatever number we found.
My number 8 is Astrobot's Playroom, which is weird that a top 10 game would be a console pack-in. But I think sort of separating it as a showpiece of the new controller, which it is, and it's great in that. I like that it's a celebration of PlayStation history. I think that's a lot of fun. But also, it's a really solid platformer that is genuinely a lot of fun to play, has a ton of variety across its 4 or 5 different worlds, and best of all, it never really overstays its welcome. Like, you do one mechanic in each world, like one of these you're like controlling a monkey robot outfit, one you're rolling around a ball using the touchpad, but none of those feel like they overstay their welcome, and it's an incredibly tight third-person platformer, which you kind of don't get a lot anymore, and if we do, they're kind of like, I haven't played Crash 4 this year. I hear that's also in a similar boat of being like a tight platformer, but it's nice to every once in a while just kind of play one of those and have a great experience, finish it, and then kind of have a nice non 100 hour 200% completion platformer. And it's just fun. It's fun, it's charming, it's cute, and it's really great. So Moon, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Space Engineers. I mentioned all the reasons it was bad earlier.
Right.
Now let's talk about how it's good. Yo, it's Minecraft in space, except it's about 10 times more complicated, and it's just got that itch. Just that little itch that just scratches at the way at the back of your brain, which is like, I built this ship. I spent 60 hours gathering materials for this ship. I constructed this ship. Why won't the ship fly? And then you have to literally go through and kind of do tech support for yourself as to why the ship is not performing the way you hoped it would when you designed and built it from the ground up. So, yeah, it's one of those like lower down survival games where you're not hungry, you're not thirsty, none of that stuff. But it's just got the right level of brainworms for me, where it's like, yeah, I can just mine this mountain for forever, and I'll do so until I get all of the iron I need to build the engines of the ship, so I can take the ship into space and go to an asteroid and get uranium, and then bring the uranium back to the planet I just took off from, so I can build a bigger ship, so I can go into space and get more uranium. It's the treadmill. And it's that specific treadmill that speaks to me on such a ridiculous level. And now it's like up to 6 players on Series X, I believe. It loads in a heartbeat. It's so good. I love Space Engineers. It's so bad. Like, it's go and watch some videos of it if you're interested in it, but keep in mind it is bad and it is great at the same time.
Yeah.
So that is my number 7, Space Engineers. Mr. Nimp.
All right. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition.
Mm.
Let's talk about a game with some bloat and why it's so high on my list. No, so this game did a lot when it originally came out on the Wii, and they've fixed a lot of things since they re-released it on the Switch. A lot of the quests that are time sensitive have little stopwatches on them, so you know, hey, if you want to do the time sensitive ones before your next big mission, knock these out real quick, and everything else you can just collect them and ignore them and not do them until the end of the game if you want.
Right.
A lot of those are just there just to get you extra money and stuff to help you build up on different things. They have a village building element in it. They added a whole new area into it that wasn't in the original. And since I have beaten Xenoblade Chronicles 2 last year on the Switch, it gave me a whole new appreciation for how the story all ties in with each other. Because when you beat this game the first time way back when, there wasn't really... You didn't know that there was going to be a second game. So there was a lot of stuff that they put in there that was like, okay, that's just cool side stuff. And then once you've played the second one, you start to understand what some of the stuff was happening and why it was happening in the first one. And then it all just kind of clicks.
Right.
And you get a really awesome final boss. So the game loads fast. It looks better on the Switch, obviously. It's been updated. I hear it plays all right on handheld. I don't ever play anything on handheld. But I mean, it's just a lot of fun to play. The music's great. The sweeping landscapes.
Oh man.
It does have bloat, but you can ignore a lot of it. So that's my 7.
My number 7 is Bug Snacks. Number 1, Shishka Bug is one of the best. I think this game honestly has problems with pacing, but the stuff that it does right, it does really right. Not even like Pokemon Snap puzzling thing, but just the puzzle element of, all right, here's a snack. How do I capture it? What do I need to do? How do I use it to like bother another snack, to bother another one that I want to actually catch? Getting all of the individual people back to town, a lot of their storylines were really good. The 2 guys that had been dating forever, that the one didn't know they'd been dating for years, was really good. That's probably my favorite one. There's like a buff dude that's dating a scientist guy. The scientist had no idea they'd been dating for like a decade, and it was really good. It's a game that I really, really liked. The ending kind of stumbles a lot in like, let me just get there, but that was kind of a small speed bump on such a fun game, and one of those few like Blue Sky games where it's like, yeah, all right, like it's something we haven't really seen before, and it has a hell of a lot of charm, which is something we typically don't get. And it uses the DualSense microphone really, really well, because every time I hear Peninsula coming out of my speaker, it makes me and my kid laugh each and every time. It's great.
Also, it's like $30.
Yeah, it's also on PlayStation Plus, I think, still. So yeah, $30 even, especially if you're playing it with someone else. At the very least, to have a little bit of fun, maybe play it with your kids, maybe depending on how old your kid is, maybe not the ending. But it's one of those Blue Sky games that it's just fun. It's a good time. It's kind of goofy, and it tells a really cool story, and it's a very unique thing that I really loved. Moon, what's your number 6?
This is where it's going to start getting controversial on my side.
Okay.
My number 6 is Eichenfell. as a not JRPG player. If you listen to the main show, you know that I'm the one of the three who doesn't.
Certainly not an SRPG player either.
Definitely not. It's an incredible indie game. Looks gorgeous. Music is fantastic. It tells a genuinely heartfelt story about the type of person you are and how people look at you and judge you. Representation, again, it matters, and in this, there is a lot of representation, which I'm more than happy with.
Yep.
And in all honesty, it kind of the only reason it's probably not higher on my list is because it's long.
Yeah.
It's very long. And yeah, the guy who doesn't play JRPGs is complaining that the JRPG is too long. It's like, yes, I am. Because AC Valhalla got points knocked off it for the same reason. So I think maybe 5-6 hours less on that game. I think my total playtime was like 36 hours for like an indie game is shockingly large. But it tells a great story. The music's fantastic. It's genuinely thoroughly enjoyable all the way around. And even the SRPG part of it is great. And when you get the main character, who I forgot the name of's final spell, just keep her at low health and then one-shot everybody. It's great.
Yep. It's so good.
But yes, my number 6, Iconfell. Nimp.
My number 6 is East Memories of Celceta.
Speaking of JRPGs.
Yeah.
Yep. So this originally came out on the Vita forever ago. This is the Vita port onto the PS4 that came out this year. Like I said, if I can legitimately put an East game on a list, I am gonna do it. So the concept of this one is that, stop me if you've heard this before, you have amnesia.
Wait. A JRPG character that has amnesia? I've never heard of this one before.
Yes.
So what ends up happening is that you have been given the task of mapping out this forest that people go into but never come back out of. And you were the first person to have ever gone into the forest and come back out of it, but for some reason you have amnesia. So you're basically retracing your steps, and while you are doing this, you have a full-on paper map in your game that you are filling out with a percentage bar, and you are clearing the fog of war while you are doing this, and gaining items, and increasing your stats and your weapons, and it's just a lot of fun. You discover a lot of stuff. Each of the East games can be played separately. They have ties, but you don't need to play, 1 through 6 to be able to figure it all out. It's all its own self-contained story. So you meet a lot of interesting characters and you see a lot of interesting places in this. There's no village building element in this one, unfortunately. But the map clearing is satisfying enough. I do still have gripes that, like with most video games, it has issues with mapping on a 3D plane. So your 2D plane is fine, but the moment you get any elevation, that's when the map starts getting a little wonky, and it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Outside of that, though, the bosses are still fun, the music is still great, and I still really enjoy playing this game. And it's even better now that I've got on my massive TV instead of a Vita, which still looks really nice on a Vita. So that is my number 6 game, East Memories of Celceta.
All right, my number 6 is Fall Guys. I played a lot of Fall Guys this year, and I
It's also for one specific reason, though. Other than the fact that you enjoy it, there is a certain somebody else in your house who wants to watch the jelly bean people run.
Yeah, she's go pink, guy go. Yeah, it's one of those games that's fast to get in and out of. It is simple. You're going from point A to point B, or you're putting X things in Y place. It is incredibly straightforward. It's super fast, and there's like 2 buttons. It's like there's a jump button and a dive button, and you run around. This little jelly bean waddles around.
There's also a grab button.
That's true, yeah. I will agree with Nimp. Egg Scramble and I don't remember
Tower, whatever
the wall one.
Yeah,
both really bad. But I think it's just one of those games where you understand it immediately, even as you're playing it. And you're like, oh, right, okay, yeah, like cool. These jelly beans are rolling around. I just gotta get through the gates. Okay, cool. Or I just gotta climb this slime, and it's fun. It doesn't feel exploitative with its season pass. So I mean, even the second season pass was free, which was not a thing I was expecting at all. And it is good and it is fun in a really simple, straightforward way, which we kind of don't get a lot of the time. And I like Fall Guys a lot. I like watching those jelly beans roll around and flop around and do physics things. It's always funny.
A drunken simulator.
Yeah.
Yes.
Moon, what's your number 5?
The controversy will continue from here on upwards, by the way, folks. My number 5 is Maneater. Which, for those of you who've forgotten that this game came out this year, this is the shark game. This is the open world shark game where you have towers to find and climb. No, I'm just kidding. This came out middle of the year. I'm pretty sure this was also like a discount game. I think this was like $40.
Yeah. 30 or 40, something like that.
Yeah. It's so dumb, but in all of the best ways, with probably the most hateable villain I've seen since Thanos. Like, it's impressive how much you hate that guy within the first 10 minutes of the game, and then the game just goes a little bit crazy. Like, it's like, oh, you want electric teeth? Sure, why not? Oh, you want, like, bone fins? Sure, why not? You want to destroy this giant boat? Sure, why not? Get into a fight with an orca? Yeah, why not? Let's just do it all. And then it makes all of the dumb references ever, like including like a Happy Gilmore reference when you're in like a water hazard on a golf course. It makes like Indiana Jones references, and it's the right level of dumb. And it was right when I needed it, right in the middle of like 2020, and I was just like, you know, it's a discount game. I'm just gonna play it. Apparently, it's now been enhanced for the Series X, by the way, which is hilarious. But it was just perfect. Like, I'm pretty sure you watched somebody play it at least.
Yeah, one of the streamers that I mod for played it all the way through, and it just looked dumb and fun.
It's so good, and it's so stupid, and it's so charming in that same way. It's like Robot Wars all over again, where it's like, this shouldn't be fun, this is just stupid, but it's great. And I love it.
I like the fact that it's also narrated as a documentary that you would watch on whatever.
Yep. And it's also narrated by Cyril Figgis, which is great too. Like, how they got him I'm sure they got him in the studio for like 2 minutes to do it, but yes, it's really well done. I absolutely adore it. With all of its faults, and this could be an Alpha Protocol game, but with all of the issues, and it's just kind of the right feel at the right time. So Maneater is my number 5. Mr. Nim.
My number 5 is Spiritfarer. I really like the graphics in this game. They are bright, colorful. It's on a 2D plane. You can fish. You have all kinds of random fun. Well, a lot of fun characters and one kind of crappy one. But the story was an interesting story about how do you move on after death or the death of someone else. I would say it was touching. I did not cry, which I know a lot of people have called me a monster for, but whatever.
You are a monster, but it's got nothing to do with me not crying in this game.
But it has a lot of great elements in it. It's got Metroidvania elements where you're picking up double jumps, gliding, long jumps, all kinds of random fun stuff. There's fishing in the game, which you can do off your boat while you're traveling between places. There's a boat that you're building. There's stuff you're building on top of the boat, which leads to all kinds of weird, crazy crap. And a lot of those characters that you are picking up to bring onto your boat have pretty good stories written out for them. And towards the end, you start to understand why this character is this way. And you can like them or hate them for it, whatever. But overall, it was a really enjoyable game. The only gripe I have with this game was how some of the quests were given to you, where you had like 2 or 3 of them that were given to you at like the start of the game that you can't do anything with until you're almost at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but other than that, though, it is a really fun Blue Sky game that you could. I don't remember there being any issues with it that wouldn't allow you to play it with kids around.
No, it doesn't even have voice acting, so.
I was gonna say I don't remember like even the pictures and stuff like that. It was all even when you're bringing people to their final moments, you're usually getting pictures of okay, this is them with their family, and this is how they lived out their last days and stuff like that. And it's usually something that'll draw out a heartstring or two. So
Yeah.
but it is a really well-made game, and it is my top 5 game.
My number 5 is the console release of 2 Point Hospital. Probably the only top 10 list in the world that will have this on it, and that's okay. It is. I think I've talked about Theme Hospital on this show for the last 13 years that the show's been on.
It may or may not be a minor obsession for you, yes.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite, simulation god games of all time. Bullfrog was an incredible developer. And when 2 Point Games announced they were making essentially another Theme Hospital, I was like, yeah, okay, sure. Like you and like 5 other people have tried, and it's probably not going to happen, and that's okay. But they did a really great job, and they really got down to what made those games great, and they got all the puns right, and they got the difficulty right, because the original was very difficult. But they modernized it really nicely. It felt a lot better than a lot of those other games have done. It works really well on console. It's one of those that translated right over to consoles without any issue. And they managed to capture what made Theme Hospital great, and they made a new one, and they have just been supporting the hell out of it. And I think that's super great, and it's super fun to play. And I will never finish it. Because some of the end stuff is really hard. But that's okay, because, that's sort of how the original was, too. But 2 Point Hospital is just really great, really, really solid, and just a blast to play. Moon, you're number 4.
My number 4 is Deep Rock Galactic. The game with infinite updates, apparently, based on the way this thing keeps getting updated. It's a very basic game on its surface level. It's super duper basic, but this thing it's the right zen. It's 4-player co-op. It's you go mining, you get a simple goal or a simple mission, you go do it, and then you finish the mission, then you go and do another one, and 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 then before you know it, 7 hours have passed, and you're like, where did my day go? I was supposed to do other stuff today, and instead I've just been a dwarf mining, yelling about rock and stone. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's a grindy game. Let's not get it wrong. The game can be a super grind, especially if you're looking at those achievements, which I was, and I have since decided. It has so much stuff you can get in it, so much stuff to unlock, cosmetics, blah 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 blah. So like, literally, there's so much in this game. It would probably be impossible to see it all, but yet still, it's just so fun to play. Like, it's so fun to just jump in. Especially for me, this has been our Friday night game for a while, where we've just jumped in, we're just shooting some spiders, getting rid of some glowy bits, and then mining the Morkite or collecting the eggs or whatever we're doing on that particular mission, while we're having a chat about the week. And it's been a very, very good Zen game, because it's not super challenging. And I would actually say, if you have children who are not terrified of giant spiders, maybe give this a go. Like, I think this might work out well for you and yours, Nimp. Don't know so much about Boston's.
Probably not yet, yeah.
But for you and yours, it might be good, because it's a case of, obviously, you'd have to buy like 6 copies of the game and 2 new platforms and everything else going on with that. But, I think it works as a good, solid, like, let's just stick it on the normal difficulty. And even on normal difficulty, it's not that hard. Unless you're community member T-Bomb Rocks who constantly falls off edges, and then we have to go and save him. But yes, that's my number 4 is Deep Rock Galactic. Nymph.
My number 4 is Genshin Impact.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah, I have gone super hard into this game. I have all the wind stones, all the earth stones. I have max stamina. I have 6 characters at max level right now with almost max talents.
Mhm.
And I'm currently maxing out artifacts and weapons for all 6 of those characters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you want to talk about a grind. But like Boston had said earlier, it's a really good looking game, and it is a lot of fun to explore. I am at the point right now where I've already explored everything, and I am just waiting for the new landmass to come out at the end of December,
Mhm.
which sounds like it's going to be awesome. And I've been doing a lot of the dungeons. You can do co-op with them, up to 4 or 3 other players, including yourself. So I've been doing a lot of those that way, because depending on who you're playing with, you can just blow through a dungeon like it's nothing, as opposed to you just trying to do it with your 4 characters.
Mm.
And that has led to a lot of fun stuff of game slowdown, because you have so many elements blowing off at one time that's combining and reacting to each other that there's just too much going on and the game can't take it. And then you get other fun stuff where people are making fun of you because you're not doing a whole lot of damage, and they're like, "Oh, get good, scrub." And it's like, well, I didn't spend $4,000 on a character drop, so
Right.
Yep.
this does have pay with real money elements, but it's not pay to win.
Right.
Just because a character isn't a 5-star character does not mean that that character is automatically bad. There are several 4-star characters that are better than the 5 stars that are out there right now.
Mhm.
So I've only put in, I would say, about like $30 altogether so far, just doing the monthly $5 primo gen stuff and paying for the battle pass.
Mhm.
So, and you don't have to do either of that. You can get a lot of the end game currency just playing the game.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's also got a really good story. They also added cutscenes in the last update, which was really awesome. Mine had a glitch where the Chinese language was the language that was said out loud, even though it was set to English.
Right.
Which I thought that they were doing. It happens when a really big spell is going on, and I thought they were doing something really cool with language where they were just doing the spell in Chinese,
Mhm.
until everyone else started talking normally, and they were all also in Chinese. So, but still, it's a really cool game. It's really fun. Pick it up. It'll cost you nothing to check it out, and if you don't like
Yep.
it, whatever. I still really love it. So that is
Yeah.
my number 4.
Oh god. Okay. So these next 3 are like, they could be tied. 2020 has been a very good year for games.
Yep.
Number 4 is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Okay.
And I'm both surprised it's this high and surprised it's this low. Because when they announced a Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think all of us were like, okay, back to the well. Let's do it. All right, just HD Final Fantasy VII. Let's do the whole thing over again. And it's essentially a brand new Final Fantasy VII. It's not really a remake. It's just kind of a new thing. They took the bones of what made 7 great and really fleshed it out. And made it look incredible. Has fantastic voice acting. The music is great. Like, all the updated music is great. It's a blast to play. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's not turn-based. Okay, like, we'll see how it goes. Whoops, it's really fun to play. And it's a meta commentary on how far remakes can go separating themselves from the original. Which is a really interesting thing, and they ask that question in some really interesting ways. And I'm genuinely shocked they came out with this, and it's so good. It's one of the biggest surprises this year, because I honestly like a lot of Square Enix games, even if they're not good. But man, did they manage to make a Final Fantasy VII thing that is almost like a sequel and actually made it really great. It is a baffling thing that shouldn't work, especially as it diverges further from the original work, and it manages to make its own thing in a really great way, and it's really good. So Final Fantasy VII Remake is my number 4. Moon, what's your number 3? Get into the tough ones.
Yeah, we are. Well, maybe. Spiritfarer is my number 3. A genuinely charming game. Genuinely adored playing this. This might be my number 2 or my number 1 if it wasn't for the fact that the game has so much animation priority. And don't get me wrong, the animation in the game is beautiful and it's gorgeous, but after a while, just allow me to just do a quick little button press, and then the plants are watered. I don't need to see the animation every single time, especially when you double dog dare me to play the start of your game again by giving me that stupid achievement halfway through.
Right.
I'm still salty, by the way. Just in case people didn't realize.
As salty as the sea.
Yes, the Spirit Sea.
Right.
It's a genuinely great game. Like, I genuinely enjoy it. I love the story. Like Nim was talking about, like the dealing with the loss of people close to you, and then also coming to terms with who they really are, not who you think they are, is a interesting interesting style of storytelling that's not really explored that much in video games.
Yeah.
So it has a whole lot of aspects which I genuinely love. Well, duh. Hence why it is my number 3 on my list. Nymph.
All right. My number 3 is The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 4.
Yeah, there we go.
I have not beaten this game yet, but I am very, very far into it now. Enough that I can make a judgment call on it. And unless it does a complete 180 on me, I don't see why this wouldn't have been my number 3. This is the ending to 3 or 4 long series where there are so many characters involved in this right now that it's hard to keep track of them. I have not had to kill a god yet with a mech. So, unfortunately,
there's still time.
Yeah. But this will never win for graphics. These types of games, they always look like, and probably forever will be, a PS3 graphics. I don't know why they stick with this, even to the point where when you see a car turn on a street, it's not a gradual turn. It's, it made it to the intersection, 90-degree angle, and now it's going left.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think I've kind of enjoyed that about this series, where they very rarely change. The last time you've seen a lot of these characters, they were sprite-based characters, and these games still were coming out in, I think 2013 was the last year one of the major ones came out.
Yeah, a lot of them like started on the PSP.
Yeah, and worked their way up, and a lot of them you can find on Steam as well. But so far, the way the story is going and the way it's tying off loose ends and just the character story developments and just the random off-the-wall crap that is happening with this game that I won't get into because it's very, very heavily spoilery, I'm really enjoying this ride. And it's been a lot of fun, and it's going to suck to beat this game and find out that, no, we're done with Trail series.
Right. That's all, folks.
Yeah. So if they close it off, it'll probably be fine because it has been running for years and years. But there's a lot of stuff that I would still like to see that I haven't seen yet. But other than that, it's a great series. It's a great game. And that is my number 3.
All right, my number 3 is Eichenfell. Way up here. I feel like this was one of those games that I should have been looking forward to for a really long time, and it just came out, and it's like, why didn't I know about this game? Like, this is a game made for me. Moon mentioned the composers, Ivy and Sarashi, who's one of my favorite. Like, they call them the genre digital fusion now, where it's like jazz and piano and chiptune and strings, and like it works really well. The story starts pretty slow, but once it gets going, it's on the surface, it's like, oh yeah, it's like Hogwarts, but you're like a fire lady or whatever. But it manages to be so much more than that, and it, like Moon said, representation matters. Like it's a very queer story in a way that doesn't feel like pandering, and it doesn't feel like, well, here's the LBGTQ friendly character, you know, over here. It feels really great, and it feels like it's a really honest story about kind of finding out who you are and like your relationship with your family and your found family and what you're looking for in friends and defeating ghosts in dungeons and like it's got all the high school stuff. It it's just, and the on top of it, battle system is genuinely really good. It's like a 3x10 or 3x12 SRPG grid that manages to do some really interesting things with the genre where there's no MP. There's no mana, there's no like, you can only cast this spell 3 times in a battle. None of that. It's just like, hey man, if you like this spell and it works well for you, just keep casting it, dude. Like if you cast a healing spell, it'll have a X number turn cooldown, and then you can just cast it again. Whatever. I think that makes it feel really great. There's even real low level stuff of, in a lot of SRPGs, you move and you sort of say, yes, this is the spot and the direction I wanted to move in, and then you're set in that spot. Eichenfeld doesn't care. If you moved into a spot you don't want to, as long as there isn't a trap there, move again. Whatever. Like, you need to get into the spot you want to, attack with the spell or the move you want to. Like, it's not going to lock you into anything. My one larger criticism for the game is its difficulty. It is brutally difficult, which is where the accessibility menu comes in handy. It has an incredible accessibility menu. There's like epilepsy changes, there are colorblind settings, there's a lot of stuff where like, oh, now you don't have to tap stuff, you can hold stuff. But most importantly, since it's a timing-based SRPG, you can set it to just always be at a minimum good. So like you can still do the timing stuff, or like I did after like the 3rd boss, just set it to be always great. So you were like defending perfectly and attacking perfectly. The game is still really hard, but now it's not, you don't have to be perfect on every battle. Which is one of the reasons why it's so high, because if that option wasn't there, I might not have finished it. It would be a
lot lower.
Yeah. might not have finished it, because it is difficult. In a way that I think is really fun once you turn that option on, if you're like me and you're kind of struggling with the boss battles. Eichenfeld is just, it's something special, and it is made with so much love by such a small team that you can feel that they just loved making this game. I agree with Moon. It's a little bit long. You could chop a little bit out of a number of sections and still be pretty good, but that happens with some of these games. Eichenfeld has something there that I love so much, and I think the sum of its parts is really great. Like, each part is really good, and the sum of its parts is even better. And I cannot recommend it enough. Even if you don't like the genre, just turn on the always great option and just kind of play it like an easier SRPG, and I think you're going to have fun. So my number 3 is Eichenfeld. Moon, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Resident Evil 3.
Ah.
Which, again, shocking everybody, came out this year.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of complaints about this game. Oh, it's too short. Oh, it's not. Guess what? Resident Evil 3 was short. Resident Evil 3 was very short, especially when you compared it to Resident Evil 2 and 1, because it was a different style of game. That's what they were going for.
Right.
But the Resident Evil 3 game just... it shows the power of that. I think it's the Resi engine they're using now for this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that it transitions so effortlessly from first person to third person in the opening of the game. No breaks, no cuts, no nothing. And it looks just as beautiful in both versions. Like, it's one of the best looking games like last generation, I would say, easily. And then it just also happens to be one of the most fun. Again, a remake that makes you remember. It plays like you remember it playing, not how it actually plays.
Right.
Which is the most important thing that a remake can do.
Right.
And also, it's great. It's fine. It's a fantastic game. I adore it. You should have seen this coming, considering Resident Evil 2 remake was on my previous top 10 list. But let's just talk about the memes for a second, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Like the continuation of the X Gon give it to you meme from the Tyrant and everything else. And not to mention the Abby Russell playthrough on Giant Bomb is one of my favorite things ever.
It's so good.
Which is why, friends, Romans, listeners, you need to head over to patreon.com/E1M1 and you need to get us up to that $250 pledge backing level, because then we get our own Abby Russell, Boston, playing Resident Evil 7.
I'll shoot that hat off.
Give me that. Get that sweet, sweet trophy.
That's right.
But Resident Evil 3 is a fantastic game. It's a fantastic remake of an already beloved game, and I still love it. I mean, I got the 1K in it in like a week and a half. Like, it was just like, nope, I'm not playing anything else. I'm only playing this from here until it's done. But yes, my number 2 is Resident Evil 3. Nimp.
My number 2 is the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
And the only reason it's not higher is because it is not the full game. But like Boston was saying earlier, it does a lot of good with new people can play this who have never played the original and have an okay grasp on what is happening. And then veteran players who have played the original can play this game, and there's still so much more happening in here, and some things that they've twisted and turned just enough where it's having you question what you've known from the original. It's like, okay, this is what happened then. This is what's happening now. Does that mean X, Y, Z?
Right.
And I kind of really like the twist that they've added, the several twists and differences that they've added to this game. And I also like that they've focused more on the characters that you didn't see a whole lot of in the beginning of the game. So you're getting a lot of side story, you're getting a lot of extra stuff and backgrounds and places that you haven't been in Midgar before. And you're seeing it all in awesome, glorious PlayStation 4 graphics, soon to be Xbox, because that, I think it's March is when the year exclusive is done. So more people can play it. But it's a really fun game. I really enjoyed the story. I'm really looking forward to what they do with it, hopefully in part 2, which is hopefully the rest of the game.
Someday.
But I am also kind of scared on what they do with it, because they did really well with this, and I'm kind of worried that, sequelitis, they just bungle it all up. So
yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. Final Fantasy VII Remake looks pretty, has a lot of extra content and fun story bits in it. Check it out. It's really great.
My number 2 is Spiritfarer. This is very much a me game, so this isn't too much of a surprise that I really loved it. I think it's one of the few games that genuinely deals with closure and loss in a really mature but never like super heavy-handed way. The developers have rightly gotten some pushback on one character's closing story, and they have put out a statement. They accidentally made a mistake, and they're going to make good on it, and I think that's smart. But I think every character gets a really great tale of their own, and it deals with death and loss and closure in a really great way, and plays really well, and it's one of the best looking games this year, and like Moon was saying, incredible animation. Just some of the smoothest animation we've seen. Definitely a problem with animation priority. They're making you see that animation, which I sort of respect, kind of. But I think Nimp, you said something really interesting about how it's a Metroidvania, and it's actually like two Metroidvanias at once, where it's about your character and the ship, because both of those have kind of blockers around. I'll never forget the moment where you say goodbye to the first character, and it's a super sad moment, and I go to like get rid of their building, the little room they were in, because I was like, well, they left, like now I can free up that space. And the game's like, no, you just got to keep building on it, man. It's like, oh no, this is going to be like this horrible Frankenstein ship. And it was incredible. Spiritfarer is just, it's one of those games that I feel like almost everybody who plays it is going to love it, and not enough people have played it because the beginning is slow, it's contemplative, it's a lot of the stuff, it can be really sad, it can be really hopeful, it can be really affecting. It deals with humanity in a really great way, and I think that can turn a lot of people off, and that's fine. But I think it's one of those games that it's on Game Pass. You should just try it. It's really great. Give it a couple of hours to kind of get your ship upgrades, get your character upgrades. Like it does move pretty slowly at the beginning, but man, it's a really great experience. And the thing I was really worried about was I thought it was gonna just drop the ball on the ending, and the ending was really good too. And I was like, all right, you got me. Spiritfarer is just really good. All right. Spiritfarer, again, very much a me game. So I was sort of destined to love it. It was one of those games where it's like, oh no, it's a first-person walking around puzzle game. Oh no. Like, Spiritfarer is made for someone like me, but Spiritfarer is genuinely really, really great. All right, Moon. Your number one game of the year.
Come on. There's one game that hasn't showed up in mine's or Boston's list. Spoiler alert. I know what Boston's number one is.
I feel like I know what your number one is.
I don't think it'll be Nims because I don't think he played it this year, and it's definitely not his genre, but we'll see. But my number one is, of course, it's Hades. How could it be anything else this year for me?
Yeah.
Like, it's a game that came out in early access that I heard nothing but bad things about. And then I didn't hear nothing for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then it comes out and it's one of the best playing, one of the tightest controls, best looking, like, well told, storyline based roguelikes of all time with probably the most accessible progression system you've ever seen. And it just keeps getting better.
Yep.
Like, there is a reason the world went crazy for Hades, and it wasn't just because they were all horny locked up inside for 6 months. That's one of the reasons, but it's not
that
the
didn't
reason. Like, it's so good. Like, even if you don't like roguelikes, play this game. Because it's ridiculous how fantastically put together it is. The voice acting is incredible. They do multiple jobs of it throughout the whole, like multiple people doing multiple voices, and I couldn't tell you who was who because they're all so unique. It's got some of the best one-liners in video games in a long time, and a giant fluffy dog that you can pet that has literally 3 heads. It's so good. Like the superlatives can continue, and they will continue. I guarantee by the time this comes out, you've probably already seen like many other places' top 10 lists. I would be surprised if this is not near or at the top of a lot of those lists.
Yeah. Because
at the end of the day, it's a hell of a good game. Get it? Hell. Get it?
Hey-o.
Get it? Yeah. So yes, my number one. Spoiler alert, I'm stealing your thunder. Boston's number one is Hades. Nimp.
Well, yeah, being the odd man out, I have not played Hades yet. But my number one is Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh yeah.
This game looks beautiful. It has a great story. It has just enough side stuff to keep you busy, but not enough for you to hate the game.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at Valhalla. No. um, and just the way that you can tackle different objectives. I mean, this feels like it could have been an Assassin's Creed game, no problem.
Mm.
But it is just so much fun to play. The simple life stuff that they've added to this, like being able to challenge an entire camp instead of having to hunt down every single little individual. Unless you want to do that, then you can stealth in there and kill everyone the way you want to. But just walking up and challenging someone and have everyone come to you, and then being able to do all three of those kill combos and then just carry on your merry way. The game is just awesome. It's fun to play. It's fast paced. You get a lot of fun stuff that you get to mess around with that you don't have to do if you don't want to. But it's also one of the few games this year that I've actually platinumed.
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot because I'm not a big trophy person or achievement person. So, yeah, really fun game, really great story. And even the online stuff that they've added for the multiplayer, that stuff's a lot of fun too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you get to pet foxes. Enough said.
Right.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is my number one.
As Moon said, my number one is Hades. Again, it couldn't be anything else in 2020. It's when I was making my top 10 list, I put Hades at number one to start off with. But I was like, this will be high, but I'm sure some stuff will move around and it'll, something will go above it, and nothing ever did. This is a transformative game for an entire genre. We've seen this with roguelikes where NetHack came out, The Binding of Isaac came out, Spelunky came out, Rogue Legacy. Like, these are tentpole releases that kind of take the genre a step forward, where it's like, oh, okay, they did this crazy new thing. This is kind of our expectation going forward of this genre. Hades did that in like 4 different ways. It is in the combat is so incredibly tight in this game. The best way I can put it is it controls exactly like you want it to. It's a game where I'm like dashing 3 times while I'm attacking, while I'm dodging other stuff, and I'm throwing spells and stuff, and like it all makes sense nearly immediately once you start playing the game, and it just clicks from there on as you keep playing. The run over run storyline progression cannot be understated. That's the reason why so many people are excited about it. I've talked about it on the show, that there's this I think it's a misrepresentation of the genre that it's all about luck. You never unlock anything. It's just, you got lucky with the items you got. You got lucky with your drops. I think Hades prevents that perception by having literally every time you go back to Hades itself, you have new storyline bits from at least one character, if not all of them. You're continually getting new bosses, if not new variants of bosses. You're getting new unlockables all the time. Every time you run into a god in the dungeon, they're going to have something new, completely voice acted, to tell you about. And then, once you beat the game, it unlocks about 30 other things that continue to evolve after that. And it is so incredibly and impeccably designed that each milestone you unlock feels like it just complements all the stuff you have unlocked. It never feels like someone puts another 10-pound weight on your back when you're carrying 300 pounds already. It's just like, oh, so now I can make the game a little bit harder if I want. Oh, now I can make the game a lot harder. Oh, now I can give people gifts. Oh, now I have all these different weapons. I can level up those weapons. Oh, okay, cool. Like, it feels, every time you get something new, it's just like, oh, ooh, cool. All right. Instead of like, oh, God, another thing I have to manage. Like, come on. It never feels like that. It is so incredibly well designed. Amazing music, amazing voice acting, some of the best character art we've seen in a really long time. Everything about it is flawless. It's we talked about this on We Roguelike It. We have had a criticism of roguelikes, especially roguelikes, that have been in early access, and they come out of early access and they are impossible. It's fascinating to see Hades come out of or go into early access, and you're like, it's fine. Like, it needs a lot of work, but it's fine. And over the 2 years, they just kept refining it, and it comes out, and it's nearly flawless. It's so incredible. Like Moon said, whether you like roguelikes or not, you have to play it. It is even if you don't super enjoy it, can understand, but it's one of those ones where, like, if you get this one, there's probably a giant laundry list of roguelikes behind it that you'd probably enjoy now that you kind of get the genre. Go listen to We Roguelike It. And it couldn't be anything else. It's just, it's going to be the top of so many top 10 lists this year for a really great reason. And it's not like a lot of years where I'm too cool for school for whatever is going to be on top 10, where it's like, oh, I love this game. Oh, this is my top game of the year. It's like, yeah, it should be Hades. And I totally get why. So, good job, Supergiant Games. You have evolved a genre in a really
they've got
exciting
a history
way.
of bangers.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, 4 out of 4. 4 great games of the 4 you've published. Good job, Supergiant. All right. That's our lists. Any games you missed you guys want to talk about before we sort of sign off here?
Yeah, I'll throw this quick list out for you.
Okay.
Yakuza 7.
Yeah, whoops.
Who's got the time?
Yeah.
Gears Tactics, Twin Mirror, kind of a December game, kind of not. So that's thinking of for next year. And Yes, Your Grace.
Yeah, I keep meaning to play that.
Yep.
Nim, what about you?
I've got Darksider Genesis,
Yeah.
Tower of Time, Hades, Iconfell, and Cyberpunk 2077, because that is not being played in 2020.
Yeah,
Nope.
not enough time. Same as Yakuza 7, where it's like, yep, I will get to that next year at some point.
Yep.
My 4 games are Watch Dogs Legion, because I can't play it
Forgot
yet
about
until it
that
gets
one.
patched.
Forgot about Immortals as well.
Yep, Immortals is a game I totally forgot to write down, even though I'm very excited to play it. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. I started that. I really like it. I did not have enough time. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I just need to start that back over. It's been too long. I just need to start that game back over. And lastly, Paradise Killer. The kind of cool open world Phoenix Wright mystery visual novel game that everyone seems to love a lot. It's showing up way higher in people's top 10 lists than I was expecting. Gotta get on that. It's on the Switch. I just need to go buy it. All right. Whew. That's our top 10. 2020, I feel like in the first half of the year, we were all like, okay, video games, new consoles, what are you guys doing? Like, are we going to get any of those? And then the second half of this year has just been one incredible release after another.
Well, and that's the thing, because I have the dates on mine, and I've got one from May, one from March, one from June, and then everything is August, September, October.
Yeah. And then, of course, AC Valhalla, which is like November 30th. It's like, please, God. 2020 has been, thankfully, a really great year for video games and new consoles. And that's where the list ends. It's
Also been pretty good for TV shows.
That's true. Yes, there have been some good pieces of media this year. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. This is the first half of our 2 vacation episodes. Next week, now that we've sort of looked back at 2020, we're going to look forward to 2021 in the predictions episode, recap our probably hilariously wrong predictions from 2020 that all of us have made, and then we'll award the most correctest of 2020. We'll see who will that be next week. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.